Civilization is built on the promise of the loop. You enter the system at one point and you exit at another. The track is fixed. The walls are concrete. The logic is absolute. Between Station A and Station B, there is no room for the unknown. There is only the tunnel. But at 4:02 a.m., the logic of the city broke. The transit police officer on the platform, a man who has spent 20 years watching the same steel snake slide by, notices it immediately. He doesn't see a ghost. He doesn't see a monster. He sees a mathematical error. When this train left the terminal at 3:55 a.m., it was an 8-car consist. Every sensor, every camera, and every logbook confirmed it. 7 minutes later, it pulled into this station with 7 cars. No derailment was reported. No explosion rocked the tunnel. No emergency brakes were pulled. 1 minute, Car 4 was a steel room filled with living, breathing people. Next, there was a gap in the sequence. A void in the middle of a moving chain. How do you lose a 40-ton block of steel in a closed tube without stopping the clock? To understand the horror of Car 4, you have to understand the people who inhabit the graveyard shift. These are the invisible people. The night shift nurse whose eyes are heavy with the weight of a 12-hour ward. The janitor whose hands smell of industrial bleach leans his head against the vibrating glass. The student with noise-canceling headphones, lost in a digital world because the real one is too gray, too tired, too lonely. The atmosphere of a 4 a.m. subway car is a unique kind of trance. It is a sensory assault of ozone, damp concrete, and the metallic tang of electricity. The swaying is hypnotic. It lulls you. It tells you that you are safe because you are moving. We surrender our agency to the system. We trust that the man in the front cabin and the steel beneath our feet will deliver us to our beds. In Car 4, there were 12 of them. 12 souls who had nothing in common except a destination. They were tired, they were distracted, they were waiting for the world to start again at dawn. They didn't realize that for them, the sun had already set for the last time. They were riding in a ghost car, and the system was about to delete their floor. Now, let's talk about the physics of the impossible. A subway car is not a Lego brick. It is not easily detached. To uncouple Car 4 from the rest of the train, you need a specialized maintenance crew. You need heavy-duty hydraulic wrenches to break the iron drawbars. You need to manually disconnect the high-voltage stinger cables and the pneumatic air brake lines. Even with a full crew in a lighted shop, it takes 30 minutes of grueling labor to remove a single car. But this car vanished in 7 minutes. While the train was moving at 40 miles per hour, while the third rail was pumping 600 volts of lethal energy through the floor. The hook of this investigation isn't just the disappearance, it is the surgical precision of it. When the train arrived at Station B, the air hoses on Car 3 weren't ripped open. If they had been, the air pressure would have dropped instantly, locking the brakes and grinding the train to a screeching halt in the middle of the tunnel. But the brakes never locked. The system never felt the wound. The air lines were sealed. The electrical cables were cauterized. It wasn't a mechanical failure. It was an amputation. Between the last station and the next, something reached into the middle of a moving machine, plucked out 40 tons of steel and 12 human lives, and stitched the wound shut before the sensors could scream. The Oracle Investigates is watching, and the tunnel is deeper than you think. Every disappearance has a last known point, a moment where the subject is still tethered to reality. For the 12 souls in Car 4, that moment was 3:55 a.m. We have the footage from the departure platform. Count on me. 1, 2, 3. And there, Car 4. Look at the windows. A student nodding to a beat we can't hear. A nurse adjusting her bag. This is the pre-transition state. They are bored. They are safe. They are completely unaware that they are about to become a statistical impossibility. The train enters the tunnel. It is an 8-car chain. It will emerge 7 minutes later as a 7-car chain. What happens in the dark? The tunnel is dark, but it is not silent. It speaks in data. And at 3:57 a.m., exactly 2 minutes into the journey, the tunnel screamed. At 3:57 and 12 seconds, the main power grid registered a microsurge on the third rail. It wasn't a blackout. It was a spike, a massive, instantaneous draw of energy concentrated in a single sector of the track. Simultaneously, the automated control system flagged a momentary decoupling alarm. This alarm is designed to trigger if a car breaks loose. It usually shuts down the entire line. But look at the duration, 0.5 seconds. The alarm triggered and then immediately cleared itself. The system thought it was a glitch. The driver later testified that at this exact moment, he felt a tug, not a mechanical jerk, but a heaviness. He described it as hitting a wall of wind. He checked his mirrors. He saw nothing but darkness. He kept driving. When the police realized car 4 was gone, they walked the track. They called it the dead zone. The mile-long stretch between stations. They checked the maintenance alcoves. They checked the abandoned spurs from the 1940s. If a 40-ton car derails, it leaves a scar. It tears up the concrete ties. It sparks against the walls. It screams. But the tunnel was pristine. No twisted metal, no shattered glass, no bodies. The only evidence was found on the third rail, exactly where the power surge occurred. Scuff marks. Not scratches. Burns. As if something incredibly heavy had hovered over the rail, arcing electricity, without ever fully touching down. The train arrives at Station B. And this is where the physics of the situation turns from a mystery into a nightmare. Look at the coupling on the back of car 3. This is where car 4 was attached. If a car is ripped away by force, the steel snaps. It leaves jagged edges. It looks like a torn limb. This looks like wax. The solid iron drawbar is fused. It looks as if it was cut by a laser or melted in a nanosecond by temperatures exceeding 3,000 degrees. And here's the detail that keeps engineers awake at night. The air hoses. Subway trains use a fail-safe braking system. If the air hose between cars is severed, pressure drops and the emergency brakes lock instantly on every car. The train should have slammed to a halt. It didn't stop because the wound was cauterized instantly. Whatever took car 4 sealed the arteries of the train as it cut. The air pressure never dropped. The train never knew it was bleeding. The skeptics will say, it was a switch. The car was diverted onto a side track. We investigated this. There is only one service switch in that tunnel. It is a manual switch. To throw it, a worker must physically stand on the track and pull a lever. The padlock on this switch hadn't been opened in 10 years. Furthermore, think about the physics of a snake. If car 4 took a switch, cars 5, 6, and 7 are attached to it. They would have followed. You cannot just peel the middle segment out of a moving line and have the tail reconnect to the head. Unless car 4 didn't go left or right, unless it went down. We live in an age of digital tethers. Forensic data from the cell towers tells a chilling story. At 3:55 a.m., 12 phones are active in car 4. At 3:58 a.m., coinciding with the power surge, all 12 go silent. They didn't lose signal. They were terminated. But before the silence, one packet of data escaped. A teenager in car 4 was composing a text to his mother. He never hit send. It was found in his cloud drafts during the investigation. The lights turned blue. The door won't open. Not the lights went out. The lights turned blue. In the spectrum of electricity, blue indicates high voltage ionization, or Cherenkov radiation. Finally, we have the witness. Mr. Eris Thorne. He was sitting in the front seat of car 5, the car immediately behind the one that vanished. He told detectives that he was looking through the window in the connecting door. Usually you see the car ahead of you. You see the passengers. You see the lights. Thorne claims that at 3:57 a.m., the car ahead didn't derail. It simply dimmed. He said he looked through the glass and saw a wall of matte black. Not the darkness of a tunnel. A tunnel has depth. A tunnel has lights whizzing by. He said it looked like the world ended at the doorframe. He saw a void. And then, a millisecond later, he saw the back of car 3 slamming toward him as the gap closed. He didn't see where car 4 went, because according to him, it didn't go anywhere. It just ceased to be. We want to believe in ghosts because ghosts are simple. A ghost is a story. But a structural failure? That is a reality we ride to work on every day. The city is not a solid block of concrete. It is a honeycomb. The modern subway line was built directly over the skeletal remains of the 19th century forgotten Victorian sewers, pneumatic mail tubes, and Prohibition-era smuggling tunnels. Theory A is the pocket, a localized sinkhole, a structural void that opened up for exactly 1 second. As car 4 passed over the expansion joint at Sector 7G, the floor didn't just crack, it dropped. It fell into a vertical ventilation shaft from the old pneumatic system. Physics took over. The train was moving at 40 miles per hour. When car 4 dropped out of the line, the gap was instantaneous. The momentum of the heavy rear cars, 5, 6, 7, caused them to slam forward, closing the gap before the driver even touched the brakes. The tug the driver felt, that was the train snapping back together. Car 4 didn't vanish. It was swallowed. It is currently sitting at the bottom of a 100-foot shaft, crushed under tons of debris, while the commuters ride right over their heads. But a sinkhole is messy. A sinkhole leaves dust. The clean cut of the drawbar suggests something far more sinister. Intelligence. There are miles of ghost stations in this city. Tracks used for moving money, moving waste, or moving high-value targets. Who was in car 4? We know about the nurse and the student, but there was a man in the corner, a man whose name was redacted from the initial police report. Theory B suggests this wasn't an accident. It was an extraction. High-speed switching technology exists. It is used in Japan for the Shinkansen. What if a prototype were installed here? A trapdoor switch. The surge on the third rail wasn't a glitch. It was the massive power draw required to activate magnetic clamps. They took the car to get the target, and the other 11 passengers, the nurse, the student, they were collateral damage. They are currently sitting in a black site maintenance bay, witnessing something they were never meant to see. And that is why they can never be released. But the most disturbing part of this case isn't the mechanics, it's the delay. Why did it take 7 minutes to notice a missing room? This brings us to the psychology of the invisible passenger. We are trained to ignore each other. In the city, survival means isolation. We look at the floor. We look at our screens. We put in our headphones. We are physically touching, but psychologically, we are miles apart. If a man screams in a library, people look up. If a car vanishes in the subway, the brain refuses to process it. The passengers in car 5 saw a black void, and their minds rationalized it as a shadow. We have created a society where we are so disconnected that 12 people can be deleted from existence, and our first reaction isn't horror. It's to check if we still have cell service. So, where is car 4? The city knows. During my investigation, I found maintenance logs for car 4 dating back 3 years. It had a history of electrical ghosts, lights flickering blue, doors are opening on the wrong side. It was a faulty unit, a liability. The Oracle investigates. Verdict is not supernatural. It is bureaucratic. The car suffered a catastrophic mechanical failure, likely a structural collapse, as predicted by Theory A. But recovering it would have required shutting down the city's main artery for months. It would have cost billions. It would have ended careers. So they made a choice. They didn't find the car because they were the ones who poured the concrete over it. They declared it a mystery to hide the negligence. They turned a tragedy into a ghost story because a ghost story doesn't result in a lawsuit. The next time you are on the night train, waiting for the 4:02 a.m. express, look at the walls. Most of the tunnel is covered in 100 years of grime, but sometimes you will see a patch of fresh brick. a wall that looks too new. Don't touch it. And when your train pulls in, count the cars. If you are walking between the carriages and you reach a door that leads not to the next car, but to a wall of absolute matte blackness, don't wait for the next stop. Jump. Is the city watching you, or are you watching the city? I am the Oracle Investigates. The loop is closed.